Excuse me, sir. Dr. Wakefield, sir. Sir, could we talk to you about your products, sir? Dr. Wakefield, sir.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're discussing people who raised the alarm about the biggest scammers and fraudsters and whether or not the world listened.
I figured anybody who was stealing that large would do to extreme measures to protect the scheme, protect the organization.
Richard Bowen warned us about Citigroup.
I was relieved of most of my responsibility, and I no longer was physically with the organization.
He tried to stop the 2008 housing market crash before it happened. In 2006, as a senior vice president at Citigroup, Richard Bowen discovered serious problems with an alarming 60% of the group's mortgages. However, his concerns were ignored as he watched the number of bad mortgages climb to 80%.
Bowen's job was to make sure that these mortgages met Citigroup's own standards. No missing paperwork, no signs of fraud, no unqualified borrowers. But in 2006, he discovered that 60% of the mortgages he evaluated were defective.
Bowen knew something drastic needed to be done. He alerted the board of directors only to be placed on administrative leave and forced to sign a confidentiality agreement. Eventually, the nationwide mortgage fraud practiced by Citibank and other major banks came to light, triggering a devastating recession. While the banks at fault were bailed out by the government, countless individuals suffered greatly from the impact of the recession.
This is not one of those that they neither admit nor deny. They admitted the fraud. They paid a $158 million fine.
Scammer Payback, aka Pierogi, warned us about countless scams.
I'm going to put the money back right now. I'm going to put all the money back.
Am I getting confused? I'm starting to get confused about what's even happening.
Known to fans by his nickname Pierogi, Scammer Payback is a YouTuber creating content to raise awareness about common scams that have a high chance of impacting us all. Known as scam baiting, Pierogi pretends to fall for the scammer's ruse over the phone while simultaneously hacking into the scammer's computer networks to expose their information and destroy their files.
Sir, I told you don't put anything right now. Don't you understand? Are you a math person?
Well, actually, yes, I am.
The result is pure justice being served, and it's so satisfying. While Scammer Payback can't single-handedly take down every scammer out there, he is raising awareness in an effective way. His audience is educated on how to recognize and deal with common scams in order to keep themselves and their loved ones safe.
They were essentially paying per computer every seat in a call center. They had given money to the police. So in case there was a raid, it was pretty much a fake raid.
Clarence Barron warned Bostonians about Charles Ponzi. Even if you've never heard of Charles Ponzi, his name might clue you in to what he was getting up to in the early 1920s. Ponzi, for whom the Ponzi scheme was named, promised unbelievable returns to investors in his money-making scheme. But there was no money to be made. Ponzi was paying earlier investors with the money coming in from new ones.
The Boston press also began to take an interest in the man people were calling a financial genius.
As his scam grew, the Boston Post grew suspicious and asked Clarence Barron to look into Ponzi's business. Barron was head of the Dow Jones and the Wall Street Journal, and he found Ponzi's business to be completely fraudulent. Barron's report was instrumental in Ponzi's subsequent arrest, putting an end to his deception and fraud.
And Barron wrote an article in which he said, if Ponzi can make 300% profit for his investors, why is he putting his money in banks that are only paying 2 or 3%?
Robert S. Lancaster warned us about Sylvia Browne. Lancaster was an active member of the skeptic community, focusing on exposing people claiming to have supernatural abilities, such as psychic mediums. Lancaster particularly disagreed with the activities of self-proclaimed psychic Sylvia Browne. Browne often used her psychic powers to make shockingly false assertions about missing persons, causing unnecessary grief and confusion for their families.
Every time I go to my brother's home, my sister-in-law says, "You are surrounded by angels." Is that true?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
It's a shame she isn't.
In 2006, Lancaster created a website fact-checking all of Browne's claims, exposing her fraudulent powers to the early internet. Lancaster was known for his patient and neutral breakdown of these false claims, to the extent that he successfully converted many of Browne's diehard fans into skeptics.
That's why with Montel, because I've been with Montel 20 years, the longer you're with a person, the closer you get to a person, the less effective you are, because you're emotionally involved.
James Randi warned us about Uri Geller.
The media, even some scientists, were taking the Geller phenomena seriously. So I decided to show, for starters, that I could at least duplicate these effects using trickery.
A pillar of the skeptic community, Randy was a magician and author who investigated and exposed supernatural and paranormal claims. Uri Geller was one individual with such claims, as he allegedly possessed supernatural powers, including telekinesis and telepathy. Randy claimed Geller's powers could be explained with simple magician's illusions and challenged Geller to appear on The Tonight Show. Randy and Johnny Carson teamed up to ensure Geller couldn't pull any of his usual tricks, and Geller's demonstration was a spectacular failure.
It does look like there's a slight bend in it.
It'll keep bending. It bends more. Usually it bends more after it happens. And this is one of the thickest point of the spoon.
Despite this, Geller's career only grew following his appearance on Carson's show. Apparently, audiences believed true magic wouldn't work every time, and his failure only lent him more credibility.
Right now I'm feeling being pressed, and then I can't.
Well, I'm not trying to press you. I really not.
No, you're only telling me, well, will you try that or that or that?
Brian Deere exposed Andrew Wakefield.
Dr. Wakefield, I'm sorry to interrupt. Brian Deere, Channel 4 Television. Could I talk to you about your research, sir, and your commercial ambitions? Excuse me.
Disgraced former Dr. Andrew Wakefield has caused immeasurable damage in the medical community with his 1998 study that claimed the MMR vaccine caused autism in children. Brian Deere investigated both Wakefield and his claims, finding that the study was completely fraudulent. No one was able to reproduce the findings Wakefield claimed in his study, and Deere revealed that Wakefield had manipulated evidence to reach his conclusions.
He won't give his children the triple dose because he believes it's the combination in the MMR that causes the problem.
Furthermore, Deere discovered that Wakefield had discussed developing an alternative MMR vaccine and intended to sell test kits for autism that he predicted could earn him over $40 million a year. Deere's reporting might have ended Wakefield's medical career, but unfortunately his claims still live on amongst anti-vaccine conspiracy theorists.
If you're confident about your work, sir, and the quality of your research, sir, and that your commercial ambitions will withstand public scrutiny, sir, you will stand your ground, sir.
John Carreyrou exposed Elizabeth Holmes.
And so by the time my first story about Theranos was published, I had been trying to interview Elizabeth for 5.5 months.
She rose to infamy for her fraudulent blood testing company Theranos. Before the public discovered Holmes' unbelievable technology really was too good to be true, she had already been named the youngest self-made female billionaire by Forbes. Journalist John Carreyrou began investigating Holmes in 2015 after receiving a tip from a skeptical medical expert.
If, however, the sample is still viable, Theranos dilutes the blood and processes it on a modified Siemens machine.
After several months, Carreyrou published an article in the Wall Street Journal that exposed Holmes and Theranos as completely fraudulent. The article destroyed Theranos, and the company quickly began spiraling towards its final end in 2018. Holmes was later found guilty of defrauding investors and was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison and a $452 million fine.
When it comes down to it, it was putting people's lives at risk.
Absolutely. I mean, you can fault the regulators to some extent, but the regulators were also being lied to.
Bethany McLean warned us about Enron.
It gets into a definition of what courage is, right? And I'm not sure I was so much brave as I saw something and started down a path.
A massive 2001 scandal revealed widespread fraud within America's dominant energy company, Enron. The company had been overvaluing itself and using shady strategies to conceal an overwhelming amount of debt. The scandal was uncovered in large part by journalist Bethany McLean, who drew attention to Enron's unbelievably high stock price in her Fortune article, Is Enron Overpriced?
They tried every trick in the bag to try to create the illusion of a business where there was none, and the people who were working there were getting increasingly desperate.
Though McLean did not suggest Enron's practices were fraudulent, her article raised suspicions that caused Enron executives to panic. Enron began to fall apart from the inside. A famous memo to the CEO from VP of Corporate Development, Sharon Watkins, read, "I am incredibly nervous that we will implode in a wave of accounting scandals." By the end of the year, Enron was forced to file for bankruptcy.
And this is being webcast. I know I'm going to regret this. But at least when the Titanic went down, the lights were on.
Harry Markopolos warned us about Bernie Madoff.
If your security wasn't good enough, and if Madoff found out about us, I would have had a decision to make, and my decision was pretty clear. I'd go down and take out Madoff before he took me out.
You remember Madoff. He managed to run the largest Ponzi scheme in history completely unchecked for decades, resulting in an estimated fraud of $65 billion. The scam was shut down in 2008, but financial fraud investigator Harry Markopolos had been calling out Madoff's sketchy practices since 1999. Markopolos recognized within minutes of analyzing Madoff's revenue stream that his business was fraudulent and spent years trying to expose his scam.
Harry said there were only two plausible explanations. Either Madoff was using insider information to rack up huge profits, or he was running a giant Ponzi scheme.
Markopolos reported Madoff to the SEC 3 times in 2000, 2001, and 2005 and was ignored each time. It took Madoff's sons reporting their father to the FBI to finally put an end to the scam, proving to the world what Markopolos had asserted for years.
That's equivalent to a Major League Baseball player hitting .960 a year. If you saw that in Major League Baseball, would you suspect cheating just maybe, given what we know about Major League Baseball? Of course you would.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Mark Felt, aka Deep Throat, exposed Watergate and Creep. For years, the most famous whistleblower in American history was known only by his alias Deep Throat. Revealed in 2005, Deputy Director of the FBI Mark Felt had been the one meeting with Washington Post journalists Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein in secret as they conducted an investigation into the Watergate break-in.
Forget the myths that the media's created about the White House. The truth is, these are not very bright guys, and things got out of hand.
Felt gave the two journalists key information about the involvement of President Nixon's committee to re-elect the president, aptly named Creep. Felt's information in combination with Woodward and Bernstein's investigative journalism led to the uncovering of one of the largest and most influential political scandals in American history.
Nobody stole anything. The whole point about this, nobody has made any money, and I haven't seen one of our little boys make that point.
What's the most shocking scam you've ever heard about? Let us know in the comments.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office.